Hello and welcome to the MegaCast. I'm Tyler Keefe from the studios of our flagship stations, Civic Center TV and 89.3 Lakes FM. In addition today, as always, we're on Birmingham Area Municipal Access, as well as now on Waterford Community Television and City Cable 15 in Southfield. Waterford Community Television, obviously, a service of the city of Waterford as well. We're on the web, civiccentertv.com. Click on our Watch Live link or view us in the small player at the top right of our homepage. On your mobile phone on civiccentertv.com and any of your web browsers, all of that is on the left panel of the screen. You'll scroll over to that left panel, pull up our menu on the left side of the page, and select Watch Live to watch us live from 10 a.m. to 12 noon each and every day on your cell phone anywhere while you're out and about, or listen to us on your cell phone if you're driving, of course. Be safe. We're also on the web on My Michigan TV, or MyMy, that is on MyMyTV.com, MyMyTV.com, or just search My Michigan Television on your smartphone app store, that being the iOS app store or the Android app store, or on a number of different smart TV app stores as well, including Roku TV, Amazon Fire TV, Apple TV, Samsung TV, and more. And you can find all that information again at MyMyTV.com. MyMyTV.com. We're also, as always, on our Facebook pages today, facebook.com/CivicCenterTV15 and facebook.com/LakesFM. Find all that information about each of our partnering stations as we continue to expand the MegaCast network as time goes on. On our website, CivicCenterTV.com/MegaCast, we have links to each and every one of these partnering television, radio, and web stations and outlets on that website, as well as links to our full episodes and our interviews. Because we know it's tough, especially on a Friday. It's a nice Friday morning. You want to go out for a walk. You're trying to get your kids to school for the last day of the week. You're trying to get into work a little earlier and get out a little earlier. You're trying to be productive. You can't necessarily take 2 hours out of your Friday to join us here on the MegaCast, and that's fine. As long as you're taking the time for us, we don't mind. You can watch us anytime on your time at CivicCenterTV.com/MegaCast, whether that be the full episodes by clicking Watch Full Episodes, or individual interviews that are most pertinent and important to yourself, your family, your work, whatever the case may be, your community. You can do that by selecting Watch Full Interviews. That again, CivicCenterTV.com/MegaCast. And right next door on our website, CivicCenterTV.com, if you click on Coronavirus, or you type in CivicCenterTV.com/coronavirus, it'll take you to a helpful webpage with links that take you directly to COVID-19 information from the Centers for Disease Control, the state of Michigan, Oakland County, and many of our local municipalities here in the Oakland County area and in southeastern Michigan, because COVID-19 is going to be affecting different towns in different ways. So maybe your hometown has different regulations than a neighboring community or a community a few miles away. We have that information directly from your hometown, but also from the county level. Learn more about the mask mandate for students in schools and how, if you have a religious or a medical exemption that affects your child and they may be better off without wearing a mask, find out information about how to go through the steps to be exempt from those mandates, which there are steps for that, and you can find that information through Oakland County's COVID-19 website, and we give you a direct link to that, so you can go straight to the Oakland County COVID-19 page, get in contact with their nurse on call the number, find out where to get a COVID-19 vaccine, and learn more information from directly here in Oakland County. Same thing at the state level. We have a link to the state of Michigan's COVID-19 specific page, where you can learn more about state regulations and even public health orders that are put in place by the Michigan Department of Health and Human Services, as well as the state's frequently asked questions page about the COVID-19 pandemic and the Great Lakes state's response to that. And of course, the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, which is really the place that a lot of these different government organizations, as well as local organizations, businesses, employers, and just regular people like you and I are going to for our information about COVID-19 to provide us guidance so we can make the best decisions for ourselves and our families as this pandemic goes on. We have a direct link to the CDC's page. That way you're not weeding through all of the internet to try to find reliable information and accurate information that's actually factual. That instead you have direct links to the CDC, the Michigan Department of Health and Human Services, and Oakland County's Health Division websites specifically about COVID-19. So you can get that reliable information directly from those sources, and they'll point you in the right direction instead of trying to play the guessing game when there's so many sources and sources in quotations out there on the web as well. And we have our top headlines each and every day also on civiccentertv.com/coronavirus or by clicking on coronavirus on civiccentertv.com's homepage. The first article today from our friends over at the Detroit Free Press, including our good friend Dave Boucher, their government and politics reporter. Joe Biden, the president's COVID-19 vaccine mandate, could have a major impact on Michigan workplaces. Calling it a, quote, pandemic of the unvaccinated, and closed quote, President Joe Biden announced a new sweeping federal mandate on Thursday that will require about 100 million American workers to get the COVID vaccine, one of the COVID vaccines, with hopes of squelching a national surge driven by the Delta variant that has choked the U.S. economy. President Biden was quoted saying, quote, this is not about freedom or personal choice. This is about protecting yourself and those around you. The people you work with, the people you care about, the people you love. My job as president is to protect all Americans. The bottom line, we're going to protect vaccinated workers from unvaccinated coworkers, and closed quote. The federal COVID-19 vaccine requirement comes through an emergency order via the Department of Labor and will apply to any private company with more than 100 workers, as well as employees of healthcare facilities that receive Medicare and Medicaid funding. Workers who refuse to get vaccinated will have to undergo coronavirus testing on a weekly basis. The administration planned to improve access to rapid and at-home testing by working with Walmart, Amazon, and Kroger to sell those tests at cost for the next 3 months. That will lower the cost of these tests by 35%. Starting at the end of this week, the White House said on Thursday. Medicaid will be required to fully cover the cost of at-home tests for beneficiaries. In addition, Biden said he'd sign an executive order requiring all federal contractors and employees to be vaccinated without the option of weekly tests to avoid the shots. President Biden was quoted saying, quote, we have the tools to combat the virus if we come together as a country to use those tools, and closed quote. About 75.3% of the U.S. population, at least the adult population, has gotten at least one dose of a COVID-19 vaccine as of Thursday, according to the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention. Michigan's vaccination rate is much lower. Just 66.3% of Michiganders ages 16 and older have gotten at least one dose of the vaccine. That's according to the state of Michigan's COVID-19 vaccine data tracker that you can find by going to the state of Michigan's COVID-19 page from our website at civiccentertv.com/coronavirus. Still, the spread of the virus is high in every state in the country, including here in the Great Lakes state. The state is seeing a growing number of COVID cases, hospitalizations, and percentage of positive coronavirus cases, putting increasing pressure on hospitals across Michigan. Brian Peters, the CEO of Michigan Health and Hospital Association, said Thursday that hospitals statewide are facing a critical staffing shortage that, combined with rising case rates, threatens to push them to their full capacity. And so hospitals definitely struggling with the current COVID-19 situation. Biden, the president, also called on governors Thursday to enact vaccine mandates for all teachers in their states, saying the best way to protect children, many of whom are not yet eligible for vaccines, is to immunize the people that are around them. But Governor Gretchen Whitmer is so far has stopped short of requiring vaccines for any state workers, including public schools, teachers, and staff, and Republican state legislators continue to take steps to ban any kind of vaccine requirements. Bobby Leddy, Governor Whitmer's spokesperson, said, quote, our top priority remains slowing the spread of COVID-19 so that businesses can keep their doors open, schools can keep students in the classroom, and the state can continue our strong economic jumpstart. The science shows that vaccines offer unparalleled protection against this deadly disease, including the Delta variant, Bobby Leddy said. He continued, Governor Whitmer shares the president's goal to tackle this virus, and our office is reviewing the president's plan to understand what this means for Michiganders. In the meantime, we are encouraging all Michiganders to find a COVID-19 vaccine location near them at vaccines.gov to protect them and their families, and closed quote. In June, the State House of Representatives passed a bill that would essentially prevent public entities from requiring vaccines as a condition of employment. In theory, public institutions such as the University of Michigan, Michigan State University, and other public universities of which have mandated vaccines for students, staff, and faculty would be affected by that bill. Senate Majority Leader Mike Shirkey from Clark Lake, a Republican, said the Biden administration's vaccine mandate is an overreach. Here's a quote from the ever-quotable Mike Shirkey. He said, quote, "The only thing it seems our government is more concerned about than COVID is their obsession with vaccines," and close quote. I mean, it's only a preventative measure of severe cases and hospitalizations and deaths. But you know, who's counting? The government, the federal government, the CDC, the state of Michigan, local health departments, local municipalities, and that's only the reason we're in this pandemic. But let's continue on. Senate Majority Leader Shirkey continued on in his character of a statement, saying, "This is not about health care, it's about control when the government dictates the private health decisions of its citizens. It is about control when the government restricts acceptable health treatments to one specific option. It is about control when the government forces private businesses to make specific status a condition of employment," and closed quote. Well, yeah, sure, you can't have a felony and be employed in most federal departments and federal offices, and that's also a rule. Is that impeding on people's freedoms to work in the government? You don't want to have people that have violent crimes on their record that ultimately have served their time but have a violent past on their record working in government. Is that a overreach? Is that control by the government? Is that obsessive? I don't think most people are calling that obsessive. I think they're calling that simply a government institution, a public institution, putting rules in place and regulations in place for what they expect from their staff. It's their prerogative. They can go ahead and do that. Now, you have the right to argue that, and you, as a state senator, Mike Shirkey, have a right to battle against that. But at the same time, the rules are rules. Employers put rules in place and put regulations in place, public and private, in order to protect those people that are around them, whether it be preventing convicted felons and those who have violent criminal pasts from holding a lot of these positions, or vaccine mandates for COVID-19 and for other diseases that have vaccines regularly available and are required for a number of jobs and to go into schools. Continuing on with this wonderful, extensive article from the Detroit Free Press that we have a link to on our website at civiccentertv.com/coronavirus. Although companies such as Google, the Washington Post, Facebook, Twitter, Uber, and Lyft all have announced vaccine requirements, many Michigan-based companies have so far stayed away from requiring them because they're difficult to manage, from offering religious and medical accommodations to the steps required when employees refuse to get vaccinated. Rocket Companies Incorporated came close to mandating vaccines, announcing last month that all of its unvaccinated employees would be required to undergo COVID tests, according to Crane's Business. Sandy Barua, the president and CEO of the Detroit Regional Chamber, which represents the business interests of the Detroit region, said while the chamber supports individual businesses that encourage or require vaccines, it is opposed to a federal mandate. Barua was quoted saying, "A government mandate that encompasses businesses as small as 100 people seems problematic from a political and logistical standpoint." Ford Motor Company did not immediately respond to the Detroit Free Press for comment on this matter. There's still a legal precedent, however, for supporting the vaccine requirements. In late May, the U.S. Equal Employment Opportunity Commission clarified that no law prevents an employer from, quote, requiring all employees physically entering the workplace to be vaccinated for COVID-19, so long as the employers comply with the reasonable accommodation provisions, and close quote, under the Americans with Disability Act and the Civil Rights Act of 1964, along with other EEO considerations. That means a person with a true medical reason not to get the vaccine, such as an allergy to certain components, or someone has a religious obligation to vaccinations, may be entitled to exemption under the law. And in June, U.S. District Judge Lynn Hughes ruled that the Houston Methodist Hospital, the first hospital system in the U.S. to mandate vaccines for employees, was within its rights to require them. So now we're starting to see the turning of the tide from previously, where COVID-19 cases were starting to be severely reduced. the situation was looking a lot sunnier and people were looking toward the future, although there was a stagnation in vaccination rate in most states and certainly on a federal scale. The outlook going forward was previously, we don't see a reason for vaccine mandates to be in place because of the situation we're in right now, because things are still looking positive. Positive for the future. The COVID-19 case rates are not surging. They're going in the right direction. They're continuing to trend in that direction, but things change. And as circumstances change, and as things change, and as this virus continues to variate because of the continued spread of COVID-19, you're going to have different precautions being put in place. And this federal mandate, definitely a large step for the Biden administration to make, and certainly going to affect, of course, federal workers and companies with at least 100 people at the federal level who are doing business with the federal government. And we'll certainly also be hearing a lot more from leadership on both sides of the aisle and from private citizens as well about their thoughts on COVID-19 vaccine mandates from our government systems. Michigan hospital leaders are encouraging vaccination as they continue forward, saying that they are near capacity. Once again, this from Bridge, Michigan. The head of Michigan's hospital industry group said Thursday that COVID patients are straining state bed capacity as medical leaders once again urged more residents to get vaccinated against the deadly coronavirus. As of Wednesday, more than 1,400 patients were being treated at Michigan hospitals for confirmed or suspected cases of COVID-19, up from roughly 300 patients in early July. That's nowhere near the state's peak of 4,422 hospitalized patients in April. But hospital leaders say staffing shortages have worsened 18 months into the pandemic as nurses, doctors, and other workers quit, retired, changed jobs, or left the field after a series of deadly surges. Quote, the issue is staffing, said Brian Peters, CEO of the Michigan Health and Hospital Association. He continued on, you can have all the beds in the world, but if you don't have an adequate number of nurses, physicians, and other healthcare providers to staff those beds, that's where we run into a problem, and closed quote. Peters continued on saying, quote, right now our staffing is stressed to a level that we have not seen previously. The precise size of the staffing shortage is unclear, and the association is collecting data now, said Peters. But he said representatives from small and large systems, quote, and everything in between, and closed quote, have expressed, quote, amazingly consistent theme, and close quote, in recent months. At a press conference on Thursday, Peters also and others noted the research showing that vaccines not only save lives and relieve pressure on health systems, but can also stabilize sectors of the economy strained by the pandemic. Dr. Geneva Tatum, a Henry Ford Health System pulmonologist and critical care doctor, said she is, quote, heartbroken and discouraged by patients who continue to remain unvaccinated because they thought they could outrun the disease, and close quote. Adding to the present strain, she and others says, is a pent-up demand among other patients for medical care as many people postpone care for serious conditions, often until it was too late. Said Tatum. She continued on, when they finally do come to get care, they are sicker and their disease is more advanced, and in some cases, which I've seen, too severe to cure at that point. She continued on saying, the threat of a fourth surge is very real. The strain that we are all under, that we are all concerned, may be a tipping point for our health systems around the state. So healthcare leaders across Michigan continuing to urge residents that have not been vaccinated yet to go get vaccinated as they continue to have a mounting pressure put on their systems. We had an interview earlier on in the week with Henry Ford West Bloomfield Hospital's Chief Medical Officer, Dr. Manu Malhotra, who talked about some of the strain that the current Delta variant and the surge in cases that's currently ongoing in the state of Michigan and throughout the region and the country is having on Henry Ford Health System, particularly at their West Bloomfield Hospital. That is on the website civiccentertv.com/megacast. Lastly, Beaumont in a study shows vaccinated Michiganders are much safer against COVID-19. This is an article from our friends over at the Oakland Press. A new Beaumont Health study of nearly 12,000 patients shows that hospitalization rate and emergency care visit rate was 96% lower in fully vaccinated patients, those vaccinated against COVID-19, of course. The study also found that fully vaccinated patients with breakthrough cases were just 1% on COVID emergency care visits during the 4.5-month study period. Within the group, those who required hospitalization and developed severe illness were typically older and much sicker with underlying health conditions. Quote, the take-home message here is that vaccination works. It is a much more powerful tool, and it will keep you out of the emergency room. It can keep you out of the hospital, and it can keep you at home safe, said Dr. Amit Bal, the Beaumont Royal Oak emergency medical physician and author of the study, in a virtual media briefing on Thursday. The study was published Thursday in Lancet Regional Health Americas, an open access medical journal focused on high quality evidence-based research. Ball was later quoted saying, quote, the main point is our odds of going to the hospital for COVID-19 if you're vaccinated is almost zero. You might get ill, you might feel bad for a couple of days, but you're typically not going to the hospital and you're not going to die, he had said in closed quote. The retrospective study evaluated de-identified medical records for 11,834 patients 18 and older who came to emergency rooms at Beaumont's 8 hospitals between December 15th of 2020 and April 30th of this year and tested positive for COVID. Of those, 10,880 patients were unvaccinated, 825 partially vaccinated, and 129 were fully vaccinated. The average age of patients was 53, and 52.8% were women. Learn more about this study and read that entire article from the Oakland Press by going to our website at civiccentertv.com/coronavirus, where we also provide helpful links to the Michigan Department of Health and Human Services, where, as we previously mentioned, they have the vaccination rate data from the state on their vaccine tracker. Also, go to the Centers for Disease Control page for more information in Oakland County for the Oakland County Health Division's most up-to-date information affecting us here in our broadcast region down in Oakland County. Although we broadcast throughout the state, we also would urge you to go to your local health department's webpage or contact your local health department for more specific COVID-19 information in your area. We got a great show ahead of you today, and just like yesterday's show, today we'll kick off the show talking about the Detroit Lions. Their season begins on Sunday at home against the San Francisco 49ers, and after the break we'll be joined by Matt Derry and Fox 2's Woody Woodruff to talk about the Lions' upcoming season and preview their matchup this Sunday against the San Francisco 49ers. At the bottom of the hour, Michael Greiner, a professor of management in the School of Business Administration at Oakland University, will join us. And then in the 11 o'clock hour, Staff Lieutenant Jim Etzen of the Farmington Hills Fire Department will join us. And we'll cap off the show at 11:40 with Shelley Kemp, the Executive Director of the Royal Oak Chamber of Commerce. All of that and more coming up next. You are watching and listening to the MegaCast.
People are getting out to walk and bike in higher numbers. More vulnerable road users and higher speed traffic can be a dangerous combination. Crash severity has increased, so if you're driving, be sure to slow down and look for people. There's no need to speed. If you're biking, ride with traffic. If you're walking, avoid stepping into the road if possible. If you have to walk in the street, walk facing traffic. Learn more at walkbikedrivesafe.org.
When times get dark, we can't see the help that's all around us. When you don't know where to turn, let 211 be your guiding light.
How can I help you?
Our guides are ready to connect you with the help you need. For help with food, healthcare, mental health, and other resources. Call 211 or visit 211.org. 211. Get connected, get help.
Parents do a lot of worrying. Get your kids caught up on childhood vaccines to protect them from these 14 preventable diseases, and you'll have 14 fewer things to worry about. Vaccines are safe and effective and save lives. So let's get caught up on vaccines and worry about something else. Get the facts at
One of the
things you can look for in your friends is a change in behavior.
These can be big changes, they can be small changes in mood, physical appearance.
They may be sleeping less or sleeping more, drinking more, or their eating patterns may be different.
One big change that can be pretty obvious is change in motivation. Do they no longer want to play basketball? Do they no longer want to play video games?
Now that we're spending more time online and in virtual settings, it's really important to pay attention to the language that your friend is using and the words they're using to communicate.
So when we text our friends, are they taking longer amounts of time to respond? Are they not responding at all? You don't have to be an expert to try to recognize these signs. The second that you feel it in your gut and that you're concerned, that's the second to have the conversation and open the door to what might be going on.
Whatever gets you talking.
Welcome back to the MegaCast. I'm Tyler Keefe, alongside our studio producer and board operator Calvin Brown here in our studios in West Bloomfield Township as we continue to broadcast all throughout Oakland County and across the state of Michigan online on CivicCenterTV.com and on My Michigan TV, as well as a number of different outlets all throughout the local area and across the state. Find all the information on those outlets as well as our full interviews and our entire episodes on demand, CivicCenterTV.com/MegaCast. As if you've stepped outside this morning, it's a little bit chillier. There's some dew out on the cars and on the grass this morning, and that's starting to feel like fall. And with fall comes football, and with football in the Detroit area comes Detroit Lions football. And joining us now to talk about the Lions is Matt Derry from the Locked On Lions podcast, as well as Fox 2 Detroit's Woody Woodruff, back again to talk about the Lions, previewing now the regular season. Guys, thanks for being with us today.
No problem, Tyler. Thanks for having us.
So,
hey, Tyler.
So what do I see? You got a Chargers jersey on. I'm guessing it's that LaDainian Tomlinson.
You know it, LaDainian Tomlinson, a little blast from the past in the powder blue. You got to love it. I'm all excited, ready to go. I know Matt is, but, when you talk about this team, I don't know how excited it is for the Lions. Are they ready to go? I mean, they face San Francisco coming up on Sunday at home at Ford Field, which will be fun, I think, because there'll be fans back in the building, and that's something that we haven't seen in a full year. And let's hope that the place is rocking, because this Lions team may need all the help that they can get when they take the field this year.
Yeah, certainly. This is a team that's coming back and really struggled last year. It's still a very young team. They've had a lot of turnover, both in the staffing personnel, but also in their player personnel, also particularly in leadership positions, most notably that being the quarterback position. And so there's a number of different thoughts on the Lions this year. Some see them as being a team that could be potentially a surprise team in the NFC North. Others think they are a playoff contender that could be a surprise even in the playoffs. And then there's others who are, I would believe, having a more realistic expectation that this is going to be a team that, much like last year, is going to be quite bad, but it's going to show some promise for the future going forward. So let's start with you, Woody. What are your thoughts on this year's Detroit Lions team? Where do you think they will end up in this 17-game regular season schedule?
Yeah, I don't think that they will do very well this year. I mean, obviously the talent level is not where it needs to be yet, but they are trying to add pieces and they are trying to build, and that's what I'm kind of giving them credit for right now. Obviously, the players have bought into Dan Campbell, they've bought into Brad Holmes, they've bought into all of that that the Detroit Lions are selling. So there, should be enthusiasm, and there is. But will that translate into wins? I think Matt will agree that, on this kind of thing, I don't see this team maybe going over 5 wins at the most. Maybe it could surprise, maybe it could disappoint, but I'm looking at 5 right now. I normally don't like to do that because, I don't like to, say, okay, they'll win this game, they'll lose that game. They have a chance in every game. Yes, that is true. But, realism does sneak in a little bit, and I don't know how they're going to finish. But this week may be difficult.
Yeah, Tyler, I'll echo Woody's sentiments. I don't see this football team winning a lot of games. I don't know who's saying they could make the playoffs. This is a rebuild, and that's okay. It is. This is year one. They came in and stripped down the roster as best they could. But, again, they had to kind of keep some guys, whether it was contractually or whatever, around that were part of the previous regime, which was an unmitigated disaster. But I like where they're going in terms of, just even the other day, they brought Kevin Baston back. KB was as popular a guy in that locker room as there was when he was the athletic trainer the first time around, but he got sick and tired of Patricia and Quinn's games and left on his own, and then they bring him back. That at least shows that Holmes and Campbell are trying to bring the best people in, regardless of whether they're from the past or they have no connection to the Lions. So that's a good thing. That's a good sign. The players are happy that their trainer's back. But again, Kevin Baston's not quarterbacking. Okay, so there's just too many questions on this roster. I'm with Woody. I would say 5 wins would be high for me. I think this is a 4-win football team. The schedule's brutal. They've got to play the NFC West. They're not going to beat any of those teams. They've got to play the AFC North. They might beat the Bengals, but the other 3 they're not beating. And then their own division, Aaron Rodgers is going for a Super Bowl. The Bears are improved. In Minnesota, the Lions never beat. So it's a tough schedule, throwing in there a lot of young players and a quarterback that is a step down from what they had before.
You see now, Matt, I would agree with you on a lot of that. But again, when you say that they're never going to win against the NFC West and that kind of thing, see, those are the blanket statements that bother me because
Woody.
how many times have we seen the Lions not supposed to win a game and then they come out and win that game? So
Woody, do you honestly think they're going to beat Seattle, the Niners, the Rams, or the Cardinals?
You know what? I could see them beating the Rams. I really could. I really could.
Stafford throws like 4 picks.
I could see that. But yeah, Seattle and everybody else they're going to have trouble with. They're going to have trouble with the Niners this week. I mean, you know, all the misdirection that they use on offense. I mean, the defense is going to be sorely tested. And then on offense with that offensive line, Bosa is going to be coming hard, and he's one of the best guys in this league. So yeah, they have their hands full. And they better be ready because Jimmy Garoppolo, you know, if he does well, you may even see a little bit of Trey Lance this week. So who knows what's going on with this? Can they do it? Yes. Will they do it?
Probably not. Not this week.
Yeah, that's about where I had them too. I think on my high-end prediction was about 5 wins, and that's including a couple of those games that maybe they could sneak out a win against a team that you wouldn't really expect them to be competitive against, like a 49ers, like a team in the NFC North, like the Minnesota Vikings. That includes potentially splitting games throughout the season in their matchups against teams like the Chicago Bears that are in similar situations. They're not very good teams, but they're certainly in a better spot in some ways than others than the Detroit Lions at this moment in time. Let's talk about the team's mindset coming back in, because both of you guys are heavily involved with the Lions and with these guys, Matt, with you hosting the Locked On Lions podcast, and Woody, with you being there in training camp and communicating with the team, and the rest of the Fox 2 sports team communicating with the team throughout the regular season. There's a couple of interesting aspects coming back this year. There's the new staff with a lot of people with NFL pedigree, guys who have been there and done that at various different levels of success. But on top of that, they're coming back into a roaring environment with 60,000 plus fans in Ford Field on each given week, and also with fans in stadiums across the league as they go on the road. How excited are the players to just get back out there in that kind of environment? Obviously, they're going back in and they're playing football. That's what they love to do. But it's a different environment when you're playing with nobody there versus coming back to what's really a jarring juxtaposition from nobody a year ago to now full fans in all the stadiums.
Oh, I think I'll start off this time, Wood. I think that it was very difficult for the players last year because there was nobody in the stands. It was weird. And then you had some stadiums where there were fans allowed and there were pockets of fans, but Ford Field, because it was indoors and obviously we had some issues here in Michigan with COVID, and does COVID even exist in the South? I don't know. But, it was tough. And throw in the fact that you had a third-year head coach that was losing the team. The team wasn't very good. It was rough on the guys, and they feed off of that energy of the fans. And, I love what Dan Campbell said the other day about we expect a raucous and rowdy group, a rowdy crowd. So, yeah, I think there will be a little bit of a home field advantage on Sunday. But as Woody pointed out, this is a good football team that's coming into town that is healthy again. San Francisco 2 years ago was a force. Last year, they lost so many guys. It was almost a throwaway year. So, yes, the crowd will help, Tyler, and the players are excited about it, but then you got to go out and play. And the Lions just don't have the talent that San Francisco has. And if Taylor Decker's hurt, that could be an even longer day.
Yeah, I think I will agree with you there, Matt. With the fans being at Ford Field again, the players, they got a big taste of that during the preseason when the fans were out there. And I remember Anthony Pittman, who made the team, the linebacker from Wayne State, saying that he was very impressed with the fans and the whole NFL atmosphere, him being a rookie and that kind of, or first year guy, and all that kind of thing. So I think that some of that has, already permeated into the players, where it won't be such a wide-eyed, wow, look at all this. I mean, yeah, it'll be loud. Yeah, there'll be, it'll be a tough building to play in and to hear for the Niners, I hope. But we'll see how it goes when they just kick it off. I mean, I think that's what everybody is just ready to do right now. After a week of, inaction after the preseason, everybody's ready to go.
Yeah, it was a weird preseason too, because of it being 3 games, because you're having teams taking a different strategy where instead of those first couple games, you're seeing more sustained, you're seeing more of that turnover between first string, second string, and third string. And as you get closer to that 4th game, you're seeing more of your starters. This year, it was a different approach because you're having that 17-game season. Guys are going to get a lot more reps in game action that matters. And like you said, Matt, depth is going to be a problem for the Detroit Lions. And Woody, you mentioned that too. And I think the biggest glaring issue there that you think about is the offensive line and the quarterback position, because it takes one big hit from a guy like Joey Bosa or Nick Bosa to take down a guy like Jared Goff, and all of a sudden you're left with one backup quarterback who's your 3rd string quarterback at this point, presumably, in David Blau, and that's a huge problem if you're the Detroit Lions, even in a season where you're not really expecting the best.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, injuries do happen, and, we'll take those as they come. But, looking at some stats going into this game, I mean, Jared Goff has lost his last 4, I believe, games against the 49ers, and he's only, 3-5 in his career. So, there is a little bit of familiarity with Jared Goff in that. But, again, it's maybe a negative familiarity because he's been losing those games. Now, with less of a talent level on the Lions than he had with the Rams, I mean, I hope that people aren't expecting him to, come out and put the team on his back and carry the whole thing, because I don't think he's that kind of quarterback. He's going to need help, which is why there has to be balance on this team heading into Sunday. The run game has to show up. It has to show up. It doesn't matter who's running, and I don't need, runs of 20, 25 yards. I just need a consistent 6, a consistent 8, that kind of thing to move the chains and stay ahead of the sticks, because as offensive coordinator Anthony Lynn said this week at Allen Park, that's something that will doom them if they start to get behind the sticks this week, Matt, and I'm sure you agree with that.
Yeah, no, I mean, this team hasn't been able to run the football since Barry Sanders retired. And it's incredible when you look at some of the numbers and Woody was mentioning stats. The fact that, they won 1,000-yard rusher since Barry, a couple of 100-yard rushers, a Reggie Bush, Kerryon Johnson, that game in Miami a couple of years ago. It's pathetic. Now the offensive line is the best it's been in years. Left to right who you got. And you've got a Pro Bowl center. So that's a positive. Depth, you're right. We're going to have to wait and see. Not the greatest, not the deepest at the moment, but especially against San Francisco. Remember, Chris Kocurek, the Niners D-line coach, was here. He wanted to stay. Patricia and Quinn told him, go talk to some other teams, and then he took a job with the Dolphins. You don't think he's not, and Chris is crazy, you don't think he's not going to want to come back and have Armstead and Bosa pinning back their heels and getting sack after sack? So if those guys are coming so hard after Goff, that's where, like what he said, Swift, Jamal Williams, Jamar Jefferson come in, ball control, you keep the Niners off the field, and let's see if they can run the football. It's not to the point where they're going to run it every play and turn this into, Bo versus Woody football, but no, they've got to establish the run, and it's something they've talked about for years, but Dan Campbell did it when he was an interim coach of the Dolphins years ago, and I think he'll try to do it now. Plus, you don't have the threat of the deep ball anymore. Stafford's gone. Goff doesn't throw the ball down the field. He just doesn't. And this receiving core is brutal. So it's going to take some time for them to kind of get situated and acclimated.
I was wondering about that, Matt, about, not being able to, blow off the top of the defense like that. But I have to believe that they're going to be using those backs in the passing game as well. I mean, I can see the swing pass out of the backfield to a Swift or a Jamal Jefferson. I'm sorry, a Jamal Williams and Jamar Jefferson. So there will be some movement in the passing game. Will we see what we're used to with a deep ball like Kenny Golladay or a deep pass to Marvin Jones? No, those days are done. I mean, now it is maybe a deep pass to Liberty Benson or Kaderil Hodge helping out on special teams. Those are the last two guys to come in. So it's going to be a lot different what you see with these Lions. Now, can it work? Yes. But will it be different? Yes. So just be ready.
Yeah, it's going to be a different Lions team this year. It's going to be a little ugly getting into this, but I think the biggest positive coming into this season for Lions fans, and I think that's already been a big discussion and it's going to continue to be, is that we're seeing the leadership change taking its toll and definitely starting to have an impact. And people are it seems like the players are buying in, and it seems like the fan base is ready to buy in as well. We'll see over time how that works out. Just another couple minutes with you guys. So I want to talk about our guy, Matthew Stafford, now in LA with the Rams. There's been a number of different predictions with that team, a team that in recent years has had some success, definitely had a lot of struggle last year and was looking to take that next step, and particularly at the quarterback position, which is why they pursued Stafford. And there's been a lot of different predictions for that team as well, with I believe it was Peter King even having the Rams be a Super Bowl contender and Stafford his pick for the MVP.
Yeah.
Where do you think that the Rams are going to be this year, and how Stafford going to play? Because the Rams don't exactly have an easy schedule there. They're playing Seattle twice. They're going up against Tampa Bay early on in the season. This is a team that, sure, they're coming back a little much more healthy than they have been in the past, but they have a really tough go of it, like other teams in their division.
Tyler, I don't know if you heard this or Woody either, but the Rams aren't playing a regular season game. Ththey're just going from 17-0 right to the Super Bowl. That's what the national media is saying. Dan Orlovsky and Peter King, by the way, will be doing the coin toss at the Super Bowl so that he can hug Stafford before he starts playing. This is ridiculous, okay? Matthew Stafford's a good quarterback, but my gosh, the national media. Chris Collinsworth, did you hear him last night? I was watching some tape on Matthew Stafford. He's so much better than I thought he was.
I did hear that. And you know what? I was like, come on, dude. You know what Matthew Stafford is all about. And you know what? The truthful part of that statement from Chris Collinsworth last night, Matt, was he hadn't watched a lot of Lions games. And
he called the Seahawks-Lions playoff game with Al Michaels 5 years ago.
Yeah, but that's in one ear and out the other. Remember, the Lions are not at the top echelon of teams, so nobody even does any research into that. I mean, I was like, come on, Chris, you got to be kidding me. Now, Tyler, you talked about Matthew Stafford. Okay, fine. Yes, he used to be here for a long time. We know him well. But you know what? Bye-bye, Matthew. I mean, I'm done with that. I don't even look at that. I'm looking for the Rams to fall flat on their face this year so that the Lions can get the best possible draft pick out of that deal. That's all I care about the Rams. That's it. Now, will the Rams be better? Maybe. Will Stafford be, the guy to lead them to playoff supremacy? Maybe. But is Sean McVay maybe a bit overrated? Possibly.
Yes.
I mean, there's a lot of that going on. So before you put all your eggs in that basket and start to go, oh, look how glossy things are out there. Wait a minute. Step back a minute and think about exactly what's going on out there.
I'm with you, Woody. I think, excuse me, I think the Rams are going to be good, but that division's tough.
Right.
And this notion that he never played in a big game and he was in prison here in Detroit, that's BS. Come on, he had a hand in some of the losses. Don't wipe your hands.
That is very true. And you know what? He also did not finish any of the last couple of years with a full schedule. He was hurt for a couple of games in there. So who knows what happens if all of a sudden out in LA with the Rams, now you don't have Matthew Stafford. No, I mean, these things are possible and they can happen. Right now, it looks rosy for everybody because there's been no games except for the Cowboys. They're 0-1. But I mean, everybody else is like thinking they can be world beaters. And you know what? Go ahead with it, including the Detroit Lions. But reality will set in come Sunday afternoon when a lot of these teams hit the field.
Yeah, it's a nice team. It's a better situation for Matt Stafford at this time. But like you said, Woody, the worse the Rams do, the better off the Lions are going to be, and they have the leadership to maybe make the right decisions with 2 high potential picks in this upcoming draft. So just another minute with you guys because we're a little bit over time here. So before I let you guys go, I want to get your predictions for this year. What teams do you like as Super Bowl contenders in this 2021 season?
I got to go with Kansas City again. I don't see anybody coming out to take them down. And I also like what Tampa's doing because last night I saw Tom Brady look like, he didn't miss a beat. So I'd have to go that way with it. I don't see anybody else stepping up yet. But again, it's very early.
I like Buffalo a lot. I think their defense is good. I really like the identity. I think Josh Allen takes a step forward. I worry about Kansas City a little bit with their offensive line. But I think the Chiefs will be good, like Woody said. NFC, again, Tom Brady last night, you gave him too much time. He goes right down the field. Something about Tampa Bay, but I do like San Francisco. I think we're going to see them Sunday, how good they can be. The NFC's loaded. There's a lot of good teams there. And, of course, Aaron Rodgers is on a mission. And he and Devontae Adams might be tough to stop, too. So, and the Smith boys on defense, I like Green Bay, too.
Yeah, it's going to be an interesting season for the Lions and all across the NFL. And when we're talking about the NFL, you're going to hear a lot of that talk and analysis coming from Matt Derry of the Locked On Lions podcast and Woody Woodruff with Fox 2 Detroit. Guys, thanks for being with us.
Not a problem, Tyler. Thanks.
Appreciate it. Woody Woodruff and Matt Derry with us talking about the Lions. Their season begins this Sunday at 1 o'clock at Ford Field when they take on the San Francisco 49ers. We're going to take a break. On the other side, we'll go over to Oakland University and we'll speak with Professor of Management in the School of Business Administration, Michael Grenier. That is coming up next on the MegaCast.
Today, it is easier than ever to join Michigan's Organ Donor Registry and help build a bridge of hope for organ, tissue, and eye donation. Just one person can potentially save or help improve the lives of up to 75 people. By joining, your legacy could be the gift of life. Sign up today at michigan.gov/SOS or at any of the more than 145 Secretary of State self-service stations located across Michigan. Be part of Michigan's Bridge of Hope by adding your name to the Organ Donor Registry.
When times get dark, we can't see the help that's all around us. When you don't know where to turn, let 211 be your guiding light.
How can I help you?
Our guides are ready to connect you with the help you need. For help with food, healthcare, mental health, and other resources, call 211 or visit 211.org. 211. Get connected, get help.
Welcome back to the MegaCast. I'm Tyler Kieft in our studios here in West Bloomfield Township. But we're not just broadcasting from West Bloomfield. We're all throughout Oakland County on a number of different television and radio stations on the public spectrum. That you can find more information about all those stations, where to watch us live on TV and radio in your local area here in Oakland County on civiccentertv.com/megacast. You can also watch us live anywhere in Michigan and around the world on civiccentertv.com, as well as on My Michigan TV. Joining us each and every morning live from 10 a.m. until 12 noon. Learn more at mymitv.com, mymitv.com. As COVID-19 pandemic continues on and there's continued changes in unemployment benefits and status of unemployed individuals in Michigan and across the U.S., that's certainly going to have a big impact on our business community. And joining us now to talk about the many impacts of those situations is Michael Grenier. He's a professor of management in the School of Business Administration at Oakland University. Michael, thanks for being with us today.
Happy to be here. Thanks for having me.
Appreciate having you on. So let's talk first about the unemployment benefits, because we've heard so much debate over the past several months about a staffing shortage, so to speak, as one part of the narrative. And the other is that people don't want to go back to jobs where they're getting paid less than a living wage, where they're having to work 2-3 jobs to make ends meet, and the ends still don't meet. And now, with the unemployment benefits going away, on one side of the spectrum, you would think some of those incentives to go back into the workplace would be coming back into play. And on the other side, you're seeing a situation where people's hands are being forced and they're going to have to explore the job market, which, mind you, has plenty of openings available, but may not be the most preferable for their situation, especially now that they're losing that added padding from unemployment. How do you think, just on a blanket scale, the absence of these unemployment benefits is going to impact both these businesses and individual employees that may be exploring going back into the workplace?
Well, I think the businesses, it's going to have relatively little impact, is the truth of the matter. And the reason we know that is that we have a situation where certain states had eliminated the extended benefits earlier. So we could kind of see what happened there and compare them to what happened in the states that did not eliminate the expanded benefits, like Michigan. And as it turns out, the states that did eliminate the benefits had really no faster growth than we did in the other states. And in fact, many of them had actually slower growth than we did in the states that kept the unemployment benefits. So it doesn't appear like there's going to be any kind of huge impacts. And really, the idea that the reason people aren't working is because of these unemployment benefits, I think, is really overstated. And the evidence really seems to suggest that. Now, in terms of individuals, I think the bigger concern is the fact that a lot of people have been counting on this income to pay their bills. As you point out, a lot of people have been struggling over the past few years, certainly since the Great Recession of 2008, 2009. We've seen very slow income growth among most families, and that has really hurt people. You know, people feel like they're not making progress and feel like things are getting more expensive, and they're right, because they aren't making progress the way they had in the past. And I think that this cut in benefits is going to hurt some people. And the bigger issue, I think, is it's going to hurt our the ability of families to spend money, which then also has an impact on the economy, a negative impact. And I think that's part of why you've seen a negative impact on the economy in some of these states that cut the unemployment benefits earlier.
We're joined by Michael Greiner, professor of management in the School of Business Administration at Oakland University. And so, Michael, there's been some reports that there's 10 million jobs for about 8 million unemployed, and yet they're still really slow to fill, even though we are slightly into the period after these unemployment benefits had gone away. Why are these jobs continuing to seemingly be so tough for these employers to fill, even despite there being a rash of jobs open, more than there are unemployed individuals?
Well, you know, people are not what we call fungible in economics, which means you can't exchange one for the other. So having a job available doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to suit everybody who's out there looking for a job. There's this process of matching up the correct person with the correct job. And that's really where I think things are lacking right now in the economy. It's kind of like the whole issue that we're dealing with, the supply chains. You know, right now they're having trouble getting semiconductors to manufactured and getting them to where they need to be. And there's this issue with there being too many of the containers in one place, not being in the place where they're supposed to be. The problem is we shut down this massive economy that was running at full tilt for a long time, as if it just on a dime. And as a result of that, it's hard to restart these things. You know, people in many cases spent 2 years off, and during that time they may have started a business, they may have gone back and tried to get more education, their lives may have changed, they may have moved, they may have decided to change careers. There are lots of things that could have happened that made it suddenly where they're not just willing to drop back into that same job that they left 2 years ago. And the other issue too, I think, and this is really something that I was just reading about this morning, is that once again, with the rise of the Delta variant in COVID, we're seeing again where a lot of these businesses are starting to shut down, especially some of the businesses associated with office space, some of the business travel. The airlines are talking about cutting again, and so people really are not as comfortable simply relying on an employer to provide for them as they had been in the past. In many cases, they're saying, you know, I need to rely on myself rather than waiting for this employer to take care of me.
We're joined by Michael Greiner, professor of management in the School of Business Administration at Oakland University, with us today on the MegaCast. And the Delta variant also taking a toll on the economy and certainly taking a toll on some unemployed individuals that may have been exploring getting back into the workplace. What, from your indications and your expertise, seems to be the overarching impact of the Delta variant and the current COVID-19 surge, so to speak, on a national level and in here in Michigan in particular, on getting workers back into the workplace?
Well, I think that the big issue, and really the biggest thing that government can do right now to get people working again, is to deal with the pandemic. We saw a very direct relationship between the vaccination starting and really making progress there with the economy starting to get back on track. And it's actually amazing the last couple months prior to this one, where we were adding about 1 million jobs a month. So that's really very impressive. And it shows that the economy was bouncing back very quickly. Now, we had it slow again this month, and it's believed that that's largely as a result of the rise of the Delta variant. So I think that, again, we're seeing where offices are again saying that they're not going to have businesses returning to them as they had been in the past, and that has kind of a waterfall effect, where if businesses aren't returning to the workers to the offices, then those workers then aren't going and using the restaurants that are located downtown. They aren't necessarily using the parking structures. They aren't necessarily driving, using as much gasoline. And so there's this effect that then goes throughout the entire economy, just from the fact that people aren't being called back to the office. And I was just reading yesterday about how business travel, where they had really hoped that would be bouncing back, that it appears to be stalling again. So really the priority number one of the president and the policymakers needs to be getting this Delta variant under control. And that's where I think really the biggest story from an economic standpoint right now is the fact that the president is really pushing to increase the vaccine mandates in businesses. And I think that will, if there's anything that will have a long-term impact on the economy and getting people back to work, that is it.
We're joined by Professor Michael Greiner. He's a professor of professor of management in the School of Business Administration at Oakland University, with us on the MegaCast today. And Professor, as we continue forward with this and we continue to have this debate on the unemployment issue, on trying to get workers back into the workplace, and what may lead one thing to another, and how the impact of the unemployment situation may impact the economy going forward. What do you believe, from your expertise, from your analysis on this issue and a number of different COVID-related issues as it pertains to our business community, what do you think will turn the tide that does get people back into the workplace and kicks this economy back into high gear? Certainly solving the issues of the pandemic, but are there any other factors at play that you believe would really turn the tide and start to get people going back into the workplace?
Well, I think that certainly dealing with the pandemic really is the central issue. But I guess if I had to look at another factor, the thing that I think is going to be really interesting to watch are businesses themselves pushing forward the mandates within their workforce. I think that businesses are really ultimately going to be the drivers in terms of getting people vaccinated. The reason is it's just good for business. Look at the example of the cruise companies, where they're involved in a fight right now with the governor of Florida. And the reason is because they say they want to mandate people on the cruises are vaccinated, and the governor of Florida doesn't want to allow them to require that. Well, the reason they want to require that is people who've been vaccinated don't want to go on a cruise with people who haven't been vaccinated. They're worried about getting the variant. So they want to be in a safe place where people are protected. So I think what you're going to see is more and more companies, if they're not requiring their people to get vaccinated, they're going to be doing things like we saw Delta Airlines, where they're going to be increasing the costs on people who are not vaccinated. And that really, I think, is ultimately going to be the thing that kind of pushes us over the finish line. It's not going to be a government mandate. This issue is has become too much politicized at this point, but ultimately it's going to be business who are saying this is bad for business. We need to get people vaccinated. And that's really what's ultimately going to get us through this crisis, I think.
We're joined by Michael Greiner. He's a professor of management in the School of Business Administration at Oakland University, joining us today talking about the job situation in the state of Michigan and federally, about the economy as it pertains to COVID-19. And as we're looking at all these issues and as we're considering the many factors that are at play with each of these individual issues and then how they connect together, the big underlying thought is, where does the economy go from here? Because this pandemic doesn't seem to have the light at the end of the tunnel that we necessarily saw a few months ago when cases were at a lower rate, when they were not increasing in the majority of the states in the union. And now we have a completely different situation. So as we're going forward with the Delta variant, with other variants that will continue to pop up as we struggle to get more people in the U.S. and here in the state of Michigan vaccinated, what do you see on the forecast for the economy going forward? Are we going to continue to see kind of this slow resurgence that we've seen more recently, or it's kind of that boom that we saw a few months ago? Or could we be running toward a situation where we should be expecting things to be a little bit more turbulent and going back and forth?
Yeah, I mean, I think that the short-term forecast is definitely for unpredictable weather right now, and the reason is because we don't know what's going to be happening with these variants, and we don't know if there could be a new variant that emerges. That's the scary thing about this. Is as COVID has been bouncing around, there are new mutations that can evolve, and you never know how that's going to impact things. But I think that what you're seeing in many cases, really, and this is a credit, I think, to the American people, is the resilience of the American economy and the American workforce, where they're saying, you know, I'm going to kind of take control of this situation and take control of my life and try to find some innovative ways to deal with this. One thing that we've seen a big jump up over the past couple of years has actually been new business startups, where there was a big concern since really, again, the Great Recession, that the dynamism, what we call the dynamism in our economy, where the amount of new business startups had actually slowed. And that's a big concern, because that's really where the innovation and the energy in our economy comes from. But what we're seeing now is that has restarted, and we have really seen historic levels of new business startups. And I think that that level of entrepreneurship is really what ultimately is going to help people get through this. And you know, I think kind of the American people, as we always do, going back and relying on ourselves and relying on our communities, I think we'll get through this.
We're joined by Professor Michael Greiner, Professor of Management at the School of Business Administration at Oakland University. Professor, just another minute with you before we'll say goodbye today. Is there anything else that would be important or interesting for our audience to know about the economic forecast, about the jobs situation going forward, or things that we should be paying attention to in the coming weeks and months?
Well, if there are two things I think that I would be paying attention to, number one would be what Congress does. Because while I said that there isn't much government can do, there is one thing government can do, and that's spend money, because they can essentially insert money into the economy. And so the question is, if they pass this infrastructure bill, the bipartisan infrastructure bill, which is supposed to cost about $1 trillion over the next 10 years or so, and then there's also talk about another large bill that would be passed through the reconciliation process of about another $3.5 trillion. If those bills pass, then you'll see a lot of money coming into the economy that would be creating new jobs. So that, I think, could be potentially very exciting and could have a big impact in the long run. The other question will be what the Fed does, because, of course, the Fed is the other big arm that can have a big impact on the economy. And if they start to really tighten up the monetary supply out of fears of inflation, which personally I think are a little bit overstated, but nevertheless, I mean, there are concerns about it. If they start to do that, then that could really choke off a recovery before we're able to make progress in it. So I think really right now the smart money is to watch what Congress does and what the Fed does over the next couple of months, because in the long run, those could be the biggest things that impact our long-term economic viability.
Well, Professor, we appreciate your time and your analysis of the current state of our economy, or the current state of our job market, both for employers and for those that are unemployed or looking to go back into the job market here soon. Thank you for your insight. We appreciate your time. Thanks for having me. Appreciate it. Professor Michael Greiner, Professor of Management in the School of Business Administration at Oakland University. Appreciate it. And if you are just tuning in and you've missed his interview, you'll be able to see it later on today on our website, civiccentertv.com/megacast. Hear his insight, hear his analysis of what our current situation is, and it's certainly going to affect all of us. It affects you as a business owner. It affects you as someone that has been unemployed and was going to continue to explore their options going forward and may have to change course because of the benefits going away. The forecast is looking kind of murky, and you know what happens with murky forecasts? Power outages from DTE, but that's a whole different issue that we'll talk about at some other point. We're going to take a quick break. You're listening to the MegaCast on your radio home, 89.3 WBLD Orchard Lake and 88.1 WBFH Bloomfield Hills. After the break, we'll be speaking with Staff Lieutenant Jim Edson from the Farmington Hills Fire Department, and that is coming up next, as well as more. You're watching and listening to the MegaCast.
How does marijuana affect the teen brain?
Our brains are still developing into our 20s.
With regular use, marijuana can affect teen brain development.
It can affect our brain's circuitry and blood flow and impair thinking, learning, and memory function,
which could hold us back from reaching our potential.
Don't let marijuana mess with your brain.
Get the facts at michigan.gov/drug-free.
MegaCast. I'm Tyler Keith here in our studios in West Bloomfield Township. You're watching us on Civic Center TV, our flagship television station, listening to us on our flagship radio station, 89.3 Lakes FM. Learn more about us here at Civic Center TV, as well as all of our partnering television, radio, and other media outlets on civiccentertv.com/megacast, or go to civiccentertv.com and click on the MegaCast link on our homepage, which will take you to an informational page about all of our partnering stations and provide you a link to our on-demand full episodes and each individual interview as we continue to talk to people about a number of issues related to COVID-19 and other interesting stories from right here in our community. I'm excited to speak with our next guest, Staff Lieutenant Jim Edson from the Farmington Hills Fire Department. We are approaching tomorrow the 20th anniversary of the horrific attacks in New York, Washington, D.C., and in Pennsylvania on September 11th, 2001. And at that time, Jim Edson was a firefighter paramedic, and then shortly after the tragedy, about a month later, went on a journey walking from the Ambassador Bridge all the way to Brooklyn to raise awareness and raise funds for those who were affected by the deaths of first responders responding to that tragedy. We're pleased to be joined by Staff Lieutenant Edson now on the MegaCast. Lieutenant, thanks for being with us.
Good morning, Tyler. Thank you for the opportunity.
Thanks for being with us. We appreciate it. So I want to start with my first question for you. It seems to be the question that everybody has for someone else when they talk about this horrible tragedy or about any anniversary. Where were you on September 11th, 2001?
I was at home. I was actually off duty at the time, and I was doing some work around the house and watching a morning television show when they cut to New York City, showing what was happening in real time. And like countless people around the world, I was shocked at what I saw.
Yeah, I think anybody that watched that live or has watched any footage of it, I mean, it's shocking. It's jarring to this day. And to think about it being 20 years ago is just as crazy, because it's something that did truly change our world, and it certainly changed the lives, and it changed the outlook of people that were on the front lines responding to this, and those like them in fire departments, police departments all throughout the U.S. Of course, 343 firefighters from the FDNY lost their lives in the tragedy in New York on that day. And let's talk about your journey after the incident, because seeing that as a first responder has to be a different perspective than as a civilian like myself or like Calvin or anyone else on our team witnessing a tragedy like that. As a first responder and your colleagues on the front lines here in Michigan, what were your initial thoughts in the wake of that tragedy, and then not only about seeing something so horrific happened to your brothers and your sisters who work in fire departments throughout the U.S., but also about your outlook going forward as a first responder.
Well, as I said earlier, when I was watching the events in real time, my initial reaction was the same as everyone else. It was shock. And then my thoughts started transitioning to not only the victims, but the emergency responders who would be arriving within moments to start rescuing people and caring for them. And when I saw the first plane strike the tower, I had my suspicions because it was a clear day, and I had some suspicions of terrorism, and obviously those suspicions were confirmed by the events that would follow. So immediately my thoughts went to the firefighters and EMS providers and law enforcement officers that would be responding to that tragedy. And the sheer magnitude of it was something that was really unprecedented in our country, absent of events such as Pearl Harbor.
We're joined by Staff Lieutenant Jim Etzen from the Farmington Hills Fire Department, joining us on the MegaCast. And 20 years ago, in the wake of the September 11th attacks, Lieutenant Etzen went on a 9-day, 755-mile walk from the Ambassador Bridge to the Brooklyn Bridge in New York. And let's talk about that journey and leading up to that, because what went behind that decision to ultimately make that journey, and maybe who did you consult with before you did that to see if they would join you in that, or to raise awareness for that, to ultimately go toward the cause and the awareness that you were hoping to raise for those families of those first responders who were affected by the tragic events of September 11th, 2001?
Well, Tyler, I think I speak on behalf of all emergency responders throughout the United States at that time. In the moments and hours and days following, we all wanted to respond to New York City, to the Pentagon, to help our brothers and sisters deal with those tragedies. But in the fire service, we're very disciplined, and we don't come unless we are officially requested. So we started in the days and weeks that followed, we started thinking of ways that we could help them without responding. And there were obviously many discussions concerning fundraising, but we started talking about demonstrations of solidarity, ways that first responders here in Michigan could let our brothers and sisters in New York know that they were truly in our thoughts and prayers, and we were with them in spirit, and anything that we could do to demonstrate that solidarity, I think, would be welcomed. So that was the initial thought process, and then it just rapidly developed into something much larger than that. Everything that we did was about people in New York, those that were lost, those that survived. But we recognized the moment we started that walk that it was a mechanism of sorts for people in communities small and large between Detroit and New York City to reach out, to grieve, to extend their support, to donate money that we passed on to the Widows and Children's Funds for the FDNY and the NYPD. It was an event it became an event much larger than what we thought it was going to be.
We're joined by Staff Lieutenant Jim Etzen from the Farmington Hills Fire Department, who 20 years ago made a journey walking from the Ambassador Bridge in Detroit to the Brooklyn Bridge in New York City just in the months after the tragic events of September 11th, 2001. Along the way, the walk raised about $40,000 for the Widows and Children's Funds for New York City's fire and police departments, who had a significant loss of lives on that day. 343 firemen from the FDNY, 37 Port Authority officers, and 23 NYPD officers lost their life at Ground Zero at the World Trade Centers on September 11th, 2001. And Jim, what was the reaction from people along the way? Because it's a long journey from the Ambassador Bridge in downtown Detroit to New York City. What was the reaction from people that you met along the way, and how did that impact both you personally and the overarching meaning of taking a journey like that at that time in our nation's history?
Well, I entitled the walk Bridge by Bridge, or Bridge to Bridge, Side by Side. And really how the walk worked was it was a 24-hour-a-day operation. So there were always firefighters and law enforcement officers that were walking at all days or all hours of the day and night. And we were walking side by side. We would be joined by emergency responders from the community that we were passing through at the time, whether they were walking with us or taking part in the vehicle procession that followed us. And it and we had 3 helmets that we carried throughout the walk that we passed on to emergency responders in New York, 2 fire helmets and one law enforcement or ballistic helmet that we carried and passed from person to person over the course of the walk. And there's really no other way to describe it. I served in the military prior to my 27 years on the Farmington Hills Fire Department. And I think that, the United States, I'm certainly biased, is the greatest country in the world. And one way that you can really gain an appreciation for that, or further appreciation for it, is it's one thing to drive through a community. It's another thing to walk through it. And the time it takes to walk through even the smallest of towns and interact with its residents and appreciate the culture of that community, and to share that grief and sorrow, because in the 20 years since, I've never seen this country so unified as it was even a month after September 11th. So to give those people an opportunity to grieve with us and to extend their well wishes to the people of New York, I think was therapeutic for all of us. And we literally passed through, we had mapped out the route beforehand. We were escorted by local law enforcement and firefighters the entire way. And we literally passed through hundreds of communities and met thousands of people.
We're joined by Staff Lieutenant Jim Edson of the Farmington Hills Fire Department with us on the MegaCast. 20 years ago, made a 9-day, 755-mile journey walking from the Ambassador Bridge in downtown Detroit to the Brooklyn Bridge in New York in an effort he called Bridge to Bridge, Side by Side, and raised about $40,000 on the way on that journey for the funds for the widows and the children who lost parents, who lost husbands, who lost wives, and beloved family down at the Ground Zero at the World Trade Centers on September 11th. And Lieutenant, when you did arrive, and when your fellow first responders did arrive in New York, what was the response from those on the front lines who you were showing support for, and also from those families that were so tragically affected by those horrific attacks, who Bridge to Bridge, Side by Side, ultimately raised so much money to provide support for in their time of need?
Well, Tyler, that's an interesting question, because we made a point of mapping out a route that would be as least impactful as possible. The last thing we wanted to do is interrupt the normal day-to-day operations of any given community and their public safety agencies. So we purposely chose a route that we thought we'd stay out of a lot of people's way. When we arrived at the George Washington Bridge, about to enter the city of New York, our escorts actually asked us to pause the walk for about an hour or so, and we were the entire way we were following the direction of local emergency responders. Again, we didn't want to disrupt anything that was going on, and I inquired as to what we were prepared to wait as long as we needed to, and I asked what the delay was, and they said that they were simply lining up resources in the city to escort us down to the Brooklyn Bridge. And I immediately said I had fears of taking resources away from more important things than our walk, and they said that there was that day there was nothing more important in the city of New York than what we were doing. So we we waited for the NYPD to get themselves in a position to provide us with an escort all throughout Manhattan down to the fire station at the base of the Brooklyn Bridge. And when we arrived there, members of the FDNY, including some of their command staff, were extraordinarily welcoming, and we didn't necessarily need that. I mean, again, this was just a mechanism for people to demonstrate their solidarity and to grieve, and we just wanted to kind of go about our way as quietly as we could in doing that. But the FDNY and the NYPD were very appreciative for what we had done, and it was kind of an indescribably emotional evening where we had the opportunity to interact with them and speak to them about what their lives were like the last prior to September 11th and in the month since. And then I'll simply add that I personally could think of nothing more than my family at that point, and just wanted to, we went on this journey and we completed our mission of sorts, but I wanted to get back to my family as quickly as I could.
We're joined by Staff Lieutenant Jim Edson from the Farmington Hills Fire Department with us on the MegaCast. 20 years ago, made his journey from the Ambassador Bridge to the George Washington Bridge in New York in support of first responders who had not only lost their lives, but were also providing such great support in the recovery effort and to try to save whatever lives they could that remained at Ground Zero following the horrific attacks in New York on September 11th, 2001. Nowadays, Jim's current position is as a Fire and Emergency Medical Services Coordinator at the Oakland Tactical Training Consortium, or OAKTAC. And so before we say goodbye today, Lieutenant, I do want to ask, how did the events of 9/11 and the experiences of first responders on that day and in the wake of the attacks, how does that inform the way that you approach being a first responder and training the next generation of first responders?
Well, thank you for that question, Tyler. And the things that come to mind are that the country as a whole, I wish, not only on the 20th anniversary of September 11th, but every day, to remember how unified we're capable of being, and to find a way to find some common ground every day of the week, every week of the year, to try and give fellow members of our community the benefit of the doubt, be grateful for this thing called life, because it is fleeting and it can be taken away from us at any time. Those emergency responders on September 11th in New York, they literally gave everything that day to help fellow members of their community. And all firefighters and law enforcement officers would like to believe that we have that courage within us, and that courage was tested. Those emergency responders in New York that day, and they passed that test with flying colors, unfortunately at the cost of their lives. And there was a September 11th commission that was convened after those tragic events that brought terrorism more to the forefront of what we do. And it wouldn't be fair for me to ask the community to learn the lessons of that day without asking emergency responders to do the same. So we join members of our community in continually hoping for the best of circumstances, but we would be derelict in our duties if we weren't preparing for the worst each and every day. So I just ask for everyone to find a way to unify, and for all emergency responders to keep working as hard as they do to be prepared for the next tragedy, because we wish it wouldn't come, but there's something on the horizon, and we need to be ready for it.
We're joined by Staff Lieutenant Jim Edson of the Farmington Hills Fire Department and currently of the OAKTAC Consortium. Lieutenant, before we say goodbye today, anything else that you believe would be important for our audience to know, or anything else that you'd like to say to our audience today?
No, I think we've covered it, Tyler. I would just ask that in many communities throughout Metro Detroit, there will be remembrances of September 11th, and I make a point of trying to go to as many of those as possible. And it's disappointing to see how many non-emergency responders or family members of emergency responders attend those events. I realize we're coming to the end of our summer. Everyone wants to enjoy, being outside, especially given what's been going on with COVID-19. But if the people listening to this or watching this could take an hour out of their day to attend one of those ceremonies and truly remember and pay tribute to those who we lost, I know I would be greatly appreciative.
Well, Staff Lieutenant, we appreciate your time. Thank you for being with us.
Thank you for the opportunity.
Appreciate it. Staff Lieutenant Jim Edson from the Farmington Hills Fire Department, who 20 years ago, in the months after the horrific attacks of September 11th, 2001, made a 755-mile, 9-day journey from the Ambassador Bridge in downtown Detroit to the George Washington Bridge in an effort he called Bridge to Bridge, side by side, raising awareness and support for first responders, and especially for those families that were affected by the 343 FDNY firefighters and paramedics and EMTs that were lost, 37 Port Authority officers and 23 New York City police officers that were lost at Ground Zero on September 11th. And as he said, take some time tomorrow to reflect on that and to think about the impact that our first responders continue to have today on our communities, and just the human impact of those horrific attacks, whether it be at 8:46 a.m. on the anniversary of American Airlines Flight 11, at 9:03 on the 20-year anniversary of the crash of United Airlines Flight 175, 9:37 the anniversary of the crash of American Airlines Flight 77 at the Pentagon, 9:59 a.m. the collapse of the South Tower of the World Trade Center, 10:03 the crash of United 93 just outside of Shanksville, Pennsylvania, 10:05 the collapse of the area affected by the plane crash at the Pentagon, or 10:28 the collapse of the North Tower, and the months and years after that, that people are still continuing to be affected by the 9/11 and everything that came from it. It was a day that changed our society. It changed our world, and for people that were adults on that day that were working in the city, for people that were working in cities and towns all throughout the U.S., it certainly changed their world immediately, and definitely changed the world for generations like mine. I was in first grade on 9/11, and people of all ages all across our country are certainly going to be doing a lot of reflecting tomorrow on the 20th anniversary. We appreciate you tuning in. We're going to take a break. On the other side of the break, we're going to transition, and we'll be speaking to Jenna Calspain. She is the Executive Director of the New Day Foundation for Families Fighting Cancer. That coming up next. You're watching and listening to the MegaCast.
A message from the staff of Michigan's Crime Victim Compensation Program.
Anyone can be a victim of crime
and suffer lasting trauma, physically, emotionally, and financially.
But you are not alone.
If you're struggling financially due to a crime,
we're here
for you.
Find out if you qualify for crime victim compensation.
Call 877-251-7373 or visit michigan.gov/crime-victim.
A message from the Michigan Department of Health and Human Services, Division of Victim Services.
You see certain things get reincarnated in your children. My daughter is very much inspired by my wife's artistic pursuits. So my daughter started making necklaces. She makes what we call affirmation fashion. I tell her every day that your black is beautiful. Your black is beautiful. Your black is beautiful. And if there's anything better than being beautiful, it's being smart. And if there's anything better than being smart, it's being kind. And reaffirming that every day is our method of making sure her chin never drops. My dad wasn't around, and I remember riding a bike and falling off and cutting myself, and me never just wanting to get back on it. People ask, how your children learn how to ride a bike, and you didn't. I didn't teach them. I just created an environment where they taught themselves, and all I had to do was be there.
we're pleased to be joined now by Gina Kell Spain. She is the co-founder and the president of the New Day Foundation for Families Fighting Cancer. Joining us on the MegaCast. Gina, thanks for being with us today.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
So there are a lot of different organizations and nonprofits, not only in Michigan, but throughout the region, throughout the U.S., that are addressing the issue of cancer, whether it be a specific form of cancer or just cancer research and cancer awareness in general. What does your organization do? Maybe that's different from some of these other organizations, and maybe some similarities as well.
Yeah, well, we provide a lot of non-medical resources. So we're not focused on research as an organization, but what we are focused on is people. We work with families who face any type of cancer, regardless of whether it's an adult or a child in treatment. But our criteria is that the family member has to be in active treatment. They have to have children in their home under the age of 18 or a dependent. Sometimes there's college age students that families that qualify with college age students as well. And they must be able to demonstrate some type of income loss or financial distress in order to receive financial assistance. For a couple of other programs that we have, like grocery assistance and emotional support, you don't have to have children living in your home or dependent children, but you do have to have someone in your family in active treatment.
We're joined by Gina Kell Spain. She is the co-founder and the president of the New Day Foundation for Families Fighting Cancer, with us on the MegaCast. And Gina, how do families address these issues and get the help from your organization? Because I would imagine that it's already a tough enough process for a lot of these families just to deal with the medical situation as it is, but on top of that, having to navigate the financial side of things as well, dealing with the hospitals, dealing with their medical providers, with insurance, and if that's even a consideration. In some cases it's not, and they might not even know or have the means to research an organization like yours. How do they go about, or how does your organization go about finding these families that are in such financial need of assistance so that they can address the cancer issue, but also not create a new issue after they do hopefully ultimately survive their bout with cancer?
Yeah, that's a great question, because it's one of the biggest barriers for us is getting access to the patients who have the greatest need. So first and foremost, we have relationships with more than 50 hospitals across the state of Michigan. So those 50 hospitals are the front line for New Day. They're social work teams primarily, but additionally nurse practitioners, oncology social workers, doctors, you name it. Anybody can be a referring healthcare provider. So those people have access to New Day. We do our very best to educate as many people within the hospital system about what we're doing and who we are. So we have pretty great relationships with about 50 of them at this point. But there's other ways to get a hold of us. There's other ways to learn about us. For those who have the means to go online and access the internet and research, you can find us just by searching for foundationforfamilies.org. That's one easy way to do it. But it's also like opportunities like this, talking to you today, getting the word out, helping people know that these resources are available to you and that you're not alone when you're going through this. So many families really, truly feel ashamed in some cases when it comes to financial difficulties. There's a lot of people who feel like they're always the ones who are giving back, and so they don't want to ask for help. But just being aware and knowing that it's private, it's confidential, and we're not sharing your information with anyone. You have access to us in a number of ways, but primarily on the front line through the hospital. But we know that they're overworked, and oftentimes it's hard to find us that way. So thank you for having us, because it really means a lot to get the word out.
Absolutely. We're joined by Gina Kell Spain. She is the co-founder and the president of the New Day Foundation for Families Fighting Cancer. Find more information about their efforts at foundationforfamilies.org, as well as information about how you can get in contact with them if your family or a loved one or someone else that you know is battling cancer, or has someone in their life battling cancer and may need this critical assistance from organizations like Gina's. And Gina, you have a couple of upcoming events that will help to additionally support the cause and provide some fundraising, hopefully, as well, for everything that your organization does. Tell us a little bit about what people can expect when they go to a fundraiser under the lights on Friday night at Stony Creek High School, as they take on the Clarkston Wolves and also hold a fundraiser for a good cause during that community tradition.
Yeah, we're so grateful to Coach Nick Merlo and his entire team. They're just such a great group of guys. Coach Merlo makes sure that his team understands what they're competing for, that as important as the game is on Friday night, that what's more important is the game of life and caring for one another and supporting our fellow neighbor. So there, a couple of the players on the team have each lost a parent to cancer. So there's some, actual personal connection here. The team also had a young boy who was at Hart Middle School, and he was also battling cancer. So they're also kind of playing in his memory as well. But the night's all about families affected by cancer and how we can join together as a community, rally around an awesome game of football to support our fellow neighbor who's going through this horrible time, and hopefully we can bring them a little bit of help and a little bit of hope.
We're joined by Gina Kell-Spain. She is the co-founder and the president of the New Day Foundation for Families Fighting Cancer, joining us on the MegaCast. And you also have a new series that's going on that's being joined by former Channel 7 and Channel 4 weather reporter Kim Adams, who most recently was a radio host on 98.7 FM, about conversations about useful information and dealing with the difficult situations that come with dealing with cancer, either for yourself or for a loved one or someone else that's important to you in life. How do people access these virtual workshops? What goes into each one of them, and why ultimately did your organization choose to go with Kim Adams to be the moderator and the leader of these discussions?
Well, I can start by telling you that Kim Adams is a true champion for the mission of New Day. She's someone who's battled breast cancer herself. Her story is a really powerful one, and she talks about how when she was in her hour of need, she actually resisted accepting help, and she realized after the fact how much it could have helped her and her family and really saved them a lot of time, helped her to heal faster, and ultimately, the benefits of what she didn't receive, how it could have actually helped her. So she's a huge champion for the cause, and she is on our advisory board now, and she represents us through these virtual workshops, interviewing different, sometimes physicians, sometimes local banks, helping people understand about financial literacy or about their health care in general. She has some interesting conversations with some famous people from out in Hollywood, so you'll have to check them out. All of them are available for viewing on our website at foundationforfamilies.org.
And also, speaking of celebrities and some fun things going on, you also have in October at the Fillmore in Detroit, you have an upcoming lip sync battle. It's going to feature a lot of celebrity performers like Joanne Purton from WOMC and formerly from Channel 7 News here locally. Also, Brooke Fletcher, who you see regularly on Bally Sports. Another person that you used to see regularly on Bally Sports when it was Fox Sports Detroit, former Detroit Tiger outfielder and star Andy Dirks, will be among the performers at this event. When, obviously, it's October 21st at the Fillmore. How can people get tickets, and are other people able to participate in this lip sync battle?
Well, first of all, absolutely. So we're so, this is like our biggest, most important, most fun event of the year as an organization. You're right, you mentioned a couple of the folks that are participating. I just found out this morning, so you're getting the scoop, that we're gonna have Rick Mahorn and Earl Cureton, former Detroit Piston legends, participating in the event this year as well. Just found out this morning. And we'll have people like Mojo from Mojo in the Morning as one of our judges, and Everett Cassimy from WDIV, Paul Glantz from Imagine Theater. So we have a few really great celebs lined up for this event. Absolutely, you can buy tickets. They will be going on sale this week. There are mezzanine level seats and balcony level seats available. And again, it's all through our website at foundationforfamilies.org. You'll click on the events link and you'll find everything you need to know about the event and all the fun that's going to be happening that night. It's a Thursday night, by the way. It's a Thursday, October 21st. It's at the Fillmore in Detroit, and we're super excited about it.
Yeah, really, it sounds like a lot of fun, and I'm sure a lot of people will be excited to see Rick Mahorn performing up there, one of the iconic bad boys from the Detroit Pistons 1989 championship team, and hopefully he goes up there wearing a bad boy shirt and singing one of the Bad Boys anthems, Public Enemy's Fight the Power. Would be a great song for Rick Mahorn. This definitely should suggest that to Rick.
We'll see if he pulls that off.
For that event. So we're joined by Gina Kell-Spain. She is the co-founder and the president of the New Day Foundation for Families Fighting Cancer with us today on the MegaCast. Gina, just another couple minutes with you before we'll say goodbye. Is there anything else that would be important for our audience to know about your organization, or anything else such as upcoming programs or events or fundraisers coming up that would be helpful for our audience to know about today?
Yeah, well, thank you. Yes, I think it's important for people to know that when you get a cancer diagnosis, your priority is your physical health, but there are other elements to your cancer journey that are just as important, and that when they're attended to, and when you are actually thinking about your financial situation, your emotional health, when you factor those into your health care, it actually can have a direct impact on your treatment outcome. So we're part of the cancer solution, and by helping you, it sounds silly in some cases, but by helping you just bridge the gap financially while you've lost some income, while you have that period of time when you're in between jobs or unable to work because you're going through treatment or caregiving for someone who's going through treatment, you have an organization right here in your own neighborhood who's able to support you and provide you with that safety net that you need to get through it. I want people to also know we do pay bills directly to creditors, so we don't provide direct cash to anyone. We go through a fairly rigorous application process as well. And all of this is for the good of the cancer community, and we're very appreciative of the business community also that partners with us. Kroger, for example, works with us to provide grocery support directly to families. We work with Express Employment Professionals when we need access to employment agency work. Some of our biggest sponsors are also doing work on the side with us to help us to truly create that fully rounded safety net, like I said, was talking about earlier. So we're grateful for our community, for the people who support us, and we're honored to be able to do this work. And we appreciate the time that we have with you today to share that.
Appreciate your time as well, Gina. Thanks for being with us.
Thank you.
Who is struggling right now?
I am.
My son is.
Many are struggling with anxiety, depression, and substance use. Before it becomes a crisis, reach out to MyCal, the Michigan Crisis and Access Line, for free confidential support 24/7. Available in the Upper Peninsula and Oakland County. Just call or text 1-844-44-MyCal or chat online at michigan.gov/MyCal. A message from the Michigan Department of Health and Human Services.
I couldn't breathe at all. There was lots of talk about putting me on a ventilator. I thought I was gonna die. I was 39 weeks pregnant and had a scheduled C-section. During that time, I got COVID and was hospitalized for a month. I had a blood clot in my lungs. It caused me to go into right-sided heart failure. I was really scared. I kept texting my husband and my mom, telling them how scared I was, and I was worried that he was gonna grow up without a mom. And then I was worried if, when I did get home, that he wouldn't know who I was. Being 27 and a mom and a wife, and having that all almost taken away from me. It's scary, and if a vaccine can prevent that from happening, why not? Get your vaccine. I don't want this to happen to anybody else.
Welcome back to the MegaCast. I'm Tyler Keefe. Here, just about 15 minutes or so left in this week's edition of the MegaCast. Well, a short week. That seems like it's really gone at a sluggish pace. But this show's moved by really quickly. Each and every day, this show has been zipping on through, and it seems like we start at 10 o'clock, and Calvin snaps his fingers, I snap mine. All of a sudden, it's 11:45. But That being said, still plenty left in today's edition of the MegaCast. And yeah, we broadcast out of West Bloomfield. And in West Bloomfield, I'm sure you've heard of Corgi Fest. Now get ready for Barktoberfest in Royal Oak. We're pleased to be joined by Shelly Kemp, the Executive Director of the Royal Oak Chamber of Commerce, joins us now on the MegaCast. Shelly, thanks for being with us today.
Hey, you're welcome. I'm obviously working setting up for the event, so pardon the outside and maybe some noise.
Oh, that's fine. Calvin and I here in the studio, we're talking before the break, trying to figure out which park you were at in Royal Oak, but now you're saying that you're setting up for the event. I'm assuming that is Memorial Park.
Yep, that's exactly where I'm at. Right, so you can probably see Woodward behind me and give or take. So, yep, that is where I'm sitting, and we are in the thick of it right now.
Okay, so Shelly, we know the name. We know it's Barktoberfest. We know where it's at. It's Memorial Park in Royal Oak, just over there by Woodward. When is this event? What time is it? And what can people expect at Barktoberfest?
Yeah, so it is tomorrow, Saturday and Sunday, both days 11 to 6. And we do have beer. You know, there's craft beer, Michigan craft beer. Let's see, Griffin Claw, Saugatuck. Oh my gosh, there is Miller Lite. There's some Maker's Mark. We've got Tito's, and there's one more beer that I am not remembering. I might by the time this is over. But it is, we've got beer. We've got 4 live bands, 2 each day. And then we've also got about 40 or so vendors that are selling all pet-related items, so to say. And then we also have a lure course, and some people don't know what that is. Look it up on YouTube. We've got Lucky Dog's lure course, and it is, I don't have a dog, like dogs, but I don't have a dog, so I had to watch a video the other day, and it is basically a course set up in the grass where dogs chase a toy on a string that whips around a field. So, I don't know, it's a thing and people love it, so that's what we've got going on.
So a lot of fun activities there. You mentioned that there's going to be a variety of beers for, of course, the pet parents to enjoy. And then there's going to be some other fun activities, such as Halloween costume contest, wiener dog race, and more. I mean, it's spooky season, so you got to dive right into it. And that includes our four-legged friends.
Yes, we always do. We do a costume contest every day, both days. If you go to the Barktoberfest Royal Oak Facebook page, the actual schedule is up there, and for the bands as well. But so every day we do a costume contest. There are some prizes. We've added a corgi race this year. We always have a wiener dog race. What else? Oh, we've got a puppy race. So 6 months and under this year, we added that. And then I'm trying to think. Yeah, I think there's another race, and right now I'm not, I can't remember. I'm sorry. There's another race that goes on, like on Saturday that, the corgi is new. So we'll see how that goes. If you've got your porgies, bring them down.
We're joined by Shelly Kemp. She is the Executive Director of the Royal Oak Chamber of Commerce, with us today, live from Memorial Park in Royal Oak, where this weekend, Saturday and Sunday, from 11 a.m. to 6 p.m. is going to be Barktoberfest at the park at 13 Mile and Woodward Avenue. $5 admission, and all proceeds. And the proceeds will go to support Detroit Dog Rescue, the Royal Oak Animal Shelter. Kids 10 and under get into the event for free. And so, Shelly, as we head into this event, and as the Chamber and other local businesses and business groups are planning events for this fall, we have to take into account that there continues to be what's called a staffing shortage in many different sectors of the economy, including for our chambers and for event planners as well. How is that affecting local events through the Chamber of Commerce, such as something like this in Barktoberfest?
Yeah, honestly, we had a very difficult time securing a tent company that had enough staff to put the tents up. We had to pivot with how the people that usually put up the orange snow fencing that you can see behind me were not able to do it because they didn't have enough staff to do it. So we had to find a completely different line of like a different business to put that sign up, which was sort of an erosion control company. It continues to be a very big problem, not just for us. We'll figure it out. But, of course, my restaurants in downtown Royal Oak and all of the, any business, the retail, everybody is having a really hard time. And throughout this whole thing, we've definitely, as the chamber, been trying to get the word out, help, try to come up with some programs or some incentives for some people just to start, working some of the restaurants are closed a couple days a week because they don't have enough staff. So it's definitely a situation for sure.
We're joined by Shelley Kemp. She is the executive director of the Royal Oak Chamber of Commerce with us today from Memorial Park in Royal Oak at 13 Mile and Woodward, preparing for this weekend's Barktoberfest on Saturday and Sunday from 11 a.m. to 6 p.m. at Memorial Park in Royal Oak. And Shelley, downtown Royal Oak, like many other downtown areas, has definitely also been affected by COVID-19, by the pandemic, as we continue to have sort of this cycle of going into the thick of things with COVID-19 and looking like we're starting to come back out on the other end of the pandemic, and then we go back in. How has that been affecting downtown Royal Oak, but also the general business community and traditions in the community that are so beneficial to businesses like Barktoberfest and other events?
Yeah, absolutely. And of course, we happen to be, our building happens to be in downtown Royal Oak, so I hear a lot about downtown Royal Oak just because of where I'm at. But where I'm sitting right now, right across the street, we've got the new Woodward Corner that by Beaumont, and we have a couple of chamber members that are in there that continue. They have people come into the restaurant and everything's okay, and then a couple weeks later people are getting a little nervous about it, and then all the seating that's outside is filled but the insides aren't. It's really hard for our members to plan because it keeps changing so much. And during last year, I've been with the chamber I've been the executive director since 2010, and after last year, I truly, completely understand now what it's like to be a small business owner. I will be honest, I didn't really think of myself as one until last year. And we were feeling exactly what all of my members were feeling, and I completely understand now, and I have a lot of empathy for them.
We're joined by Shelley Kemp. She is the executive director of the Royal Oak Chamber of Commerce with us today on the MegaCast, talking about, of course, Barktoberfest, which is coming up this weekend, Saturday and Sunday, 11 to 6 at Memorial Park in Royal Oak, 13 Mile and Woodward. Admission is $5. Kids 10 and under get in for free, and those admission fees will go towards supporting the Detroit Dog Rescue as well as the Royal Oak Animal Shelter as well. And so, Shelley, what other events does the Chamber have coming down the pike this fall, or maybe other campaigns that are ongoing or coming up that would be important not only to the business community but to Royal Oak and the surrounding area?
Yeah, so for the chamber itself, this is our last big event for the year. We have, obviously, for our members, we have our coffees and we have our after hours that will continue to go through the end of the year. The next event that we have that is a little bit bigger than one of those kind of networking events is we're doing our holiday soiree a little bit different this year, and it will be at Bolero Lanes, which we think is going to be, usually with our holiday party, we ask for donations of food, and we really didn't feel that was appropriate after last year and this year. So we've kind of changed it up. So that's our next sort of big event, but it's not like this at all. With regards to with other businesses and other events in the DDA, I'm not honestly sure still what the DDA is planning to do with the holiday events that they normally do. I haven't heard a lot about them, and that would be the next thing coming up for the general public to go to in Royal Oak.
We're joined by Shelley Kemp. She's the executive director of the Royal Oak Chamber of Commerce with us on the MegaCast, previewing this weekend's Barktoberfest down at Memorial Park on 13 Mile and Woodward in Royal Oak. And Shelley, another few minutes with you before we'll say goodbye today. Earlier on in the pandemic, the message to businesses was pivot, find new ways to bring in revenue, change the way that you are doing your business to accommodate the changes in our society because of the pandemic. Then as things started to open back up, but there are some struggles and some growing pains going back into the new normal, so to speak. The message then changed to collaboration's even more important than ever before. Right now, what message are you giving to your chamber members, and what really is the lesson that's being taken in our current situation with COVID-19 for businesses as they're continuing through the present and planning for the uncertain future with COVID-19 still very much a clear and present issue in our communities?
Yeah, with regards to collaboration, some of our members definitely, there's a couple of them that come to mind that they have joined forces, so to speak. And I think, one of them was a manufacturer. They made bags, sort of tote bags and stuff like that. And then realizing what was going on, they collaborated with a non-chamber member, and they started making masks out of some of the tote bag material. And that was definitely not something they ever thought they would have to do. So they started doing that last year. And I know Motor City Gas started making hand sanitizer. So that was a definite pivot. That wasn't a collaboration. That was a true pivot. And we actually have a lot of it at the chamber. I bought a bunch of it to support them as well. But and the message, right now, I've talked to so many of the businesses, again, back to what we were talking about with the employee shortage. That is a lot of the issue right now. The people coming into businesses and restaurants to shop and eat is not really the problem at this point. It is finding enough staff to help. And I know a lot of the restaurants in downtown have been sharing staff. And that's something I would have never thought I would hear, not because they're, don't like each other. It's just not something that's ever had to happen. And this year and last year, I know for a fact that they have been sharing staff. So everybody at least that I've been dealing with within the chamber they've really banded together, and they're really trying to help each other. And I know it's a horrible situation, but I honestly, knowing that I've been with the chamber so long, I love to see it. So maybe it'll continue once this whole thing is over and done with, hopefully.
We're joined by Shelly Kemp. She is the Executive Director of the Royal Oak Chamber of Commerce, with us today on the MegaCast. Shelly, another few minutes with you before we say goodbye. So I want to ask, before we do go, anything else that would be important for our audience to know about the Chamber, about our business community in Royal Oak, or any other topics that we haven't touched on today that you'd like to discuss?
It's just, we're obviously, the Royal Oak Chamber is, we are turning 100 this year. So we are having a little bit of an open house in October along with the city. The city and the chamber are the same age, give or take by a couple months. With regards to the COVID and what it did to the chamber, I would love to kind of shout out to Oakland County and Dave Poulter and the Oakland County Commission. They helped Oakland County Chambers of Commerce more than I could ever explain to you guys. And I want to make sure that everybody knows what Oakland County did to make sure that we were still here to help our small businesses, members or not. When all of this hit, I was on a lot of conference calls with the Michigan Chamber and the U.S. Chamber, and they kept talking about how important chambers were going to be during this pandemic and helping our members survive and get the word out and help them with information and disseminate information. And yet we were not eligible for any of the EIDL loans, CARES Act, PPP, nothing. So Oakland County, we eventually ended up being eligible for most of it, but in the beginning, the federal government considered us a lobbying group because we're a 501c6, not a 501c3. So we had no help, and everybody was expecting us to still be around and help everybody. So I would like to just shout out to Oakland County. But yeah, we obviously have other community events that happen. We have one in May on Mother's Day Sunday, which is Royal Oak and Bloom. And we also have Art of Fire, which happens the second weekend in June, and that's a juried art show. So hopefully next year, this year we got to have them and they were a little bit different, but hopefully next year they'll be back to normal.
Well, Shelly, we appreciate your time. Thank you for being with us today.
Thank you. Have a great day.
You as well. Shelly Kemp, the Executive Director of the Royal Oak Chamber of Commerce. Find more information on royaloakchamber.com and join her and the rest of the chamber and the business community in Royal Oak this weekend, Saturday and Sunday, 11 a.m. to 6 p.m. at Memorial Park at 13 Mile and Woodward in Royal Oak for Barktoberfest, with lots of fun activities for yourself and your four-legged friends, those dogs, out there at the Memorial Park. That is going to do it for today's edition of the MegaCast and for this week's show. I'd like to thank all of our crew that gets us on the air, keeps us on the air, and does a lot of work for us post-production. Calvin Brown, our studio producer and board operator, also our post-production supervisor for the MegaCast each and every day. And for his great work, Larry Nyland, who books all the guests and brings them in over Zoom and gets them all ready for their interviews here each and every day, for his work behind the scenes, and everybody else that helps out throughout the weeks on our shows to get the show on the air, to keep it on the air, and to bring you all the news and information you need to know here in Oakland County and southeastern Michigan and across the Great Lakes State. You can find all of these interviews and each of our full episodes on our website at civiccentertv.com. Click on our MegaCast link, and you can find, by clicking watch full episodes, our 2-hour live shows on demand on your time through our YouTube page, on our homepage at civiccentertv.com/MegaCast. You can also find more information on our growing number of partnering TV and radio stations. We got more coming in the next few weeks and in the coming months, so stay tuned for more information on that on our website at civiccentertv.com/MegaCast, and next door on civiccentertv.com/coronavirus. Learn more about COVID-19, see each and every day's top headlines by clicking on that link, and then you'll also have reputable resources from the Centers for Disease Control, the state of Michigan, Oakland County, and many of our local municipalities as we continue through this pandemic, and it becomes more and more important for you to have correct information, factual information from experts on the front lines fighting COVID-19. Big thank you to all of our guests today. Matt the Diesel Derry and Woody Woodruff from Fox 2. Matt Derry, of course, from the Locked On Lions podcast, assistant professor of management at Oakland University School of Business Administration, Michael Greiner, for joining us, Staff Lieutenant Jim Etzen from the Farmington Hills Fire Department, Gina Kelspon from Spain from the New Day Foundation for Families Fighting Cancer, and Shelley Kemp from the Royal Oak Chamber of Commerce. On the Civic Center TV, The Splash with Maddie Mustian is next on My TV. It is Steve Leto Live, and we'll be back here next week, Monday, live at 10 a.m. for our new shows. Have a nice weekend. This has been the MegaCast.